Thank you for joining us for the webinar today. Webinar's going to be focused on asset information management within BlueCielo Meridian. So just for those of you that are not aware of who BlueCielo are, BlueCielo have been around for a number of years now, 30 plus, with a number of different products, but in latter years primarily Meridian and its associated products. As you can see, quite a number of employees, quite a number of partners as well, and if you look at customers, then quite a number of customers globally around the world, and probably most importantly, just to give you some idea of the company themselves, they're in latter years experiencing 15% growth year on year. So, overview of the solution. What we're going to show you today is why do you need to be concerned with asset life cycle information management? What does that mean? And what's it all about? Well, if we consider a typical plant or plant work or facility, if you like, they would typically have an asset management software in place with things like maintenance schedules and that sort of nature. But that just records information about each asset, and an asset could be anything. For today, we'll use a valve or maybe a pump as an example of an asset on a chemical plant or somewhere like that. So one of the benefits straight away of being able to manage this whole scenario is reducing the time to find information that relates to those assets. So rather than just having a sheet of information with a maintenance schedule and something like that, we can actually go and retrieve as-built documents, specifications, whatever it be that's related to that piece of kit. Another important thing is, obviously, once if we look at a facility, then the facility isn't a static thing, generally speaking. That develops and evolves over time, really, and being able to keep track of those changes and manage those changes over that time, be it during construction, implementation, commissioning, wherever it be in the cycle of the facility, is very important. Some of the systems that we're going to show you today will certainly help with in being able to manage that documentation and retrieve that documentation. So yeah, maintain as-built documentation, control management of change. Maintain engineering and project documentation. So you'll see shortly how we deal with projects, if you like, or how we deal with maintaining the engineering data. So in our case today, it'll be AutoCAD data, and how that's managed through projects. And then improving consistency of asset-related documents. Hopefully that should come through as we go through the demonstration of what that's all about. The main thing to remember is that we're linking assets to documentation, basically in a very brief nutshell. That enables us to sort of carry out all of those tasks. So, just to give a brief overview of what a solution would look like, or the key points in a solution, really, rather than actually getting into software and clicking buttons. If we look down at the bottom, we have a number of different areas within our company for today. So right at the front, we've got asset management or electronic asset management with things like Maximo or SAP info. CAD information, obviously. We've got a few icons down there, but certainly the main CAD applications that you would come across are all the Autodesk suite of products, Bentley, SolidWorks, those types of packages, as integration into BlueCielo Meridian. Same again with Office documents, as you'd expect, email as well, with notifications and such like. And then, maybe a bit further downstream, if you like, where you start looking at ERP and ECM, with products like Dynamics, Oracle, SAP again, Documentum, how we can integrate into those systems and bring together the information that's being stored around those systems. What we call our system of record, but basically how does that work within the system, and more relating to the demo that I'm going to show you shortly. We have a master area which contains all our as-built information, or single point of truth as we like to call it. And then obviously a work in progress area. As we're doing work, that would be that new documentation, existing documentation that we're working on, and also a data exchange area, so sending information out of the system to people who are not in the company, third-party suppliers, subcontractors, things like that, receiving that information back, or indeed initially receiving a package of information. Okay, and how that maps across the company, really. I mean, we've got some headlines there at the top with VP of operations, plant manager, engineering and project manager. Really anybody throughout the company is able to gain access in the right way, or the permitted way should I say, to the information that's sat within Meridian, and from there they can then sort of search out and look at the associated information from the other systems as well. So really that's what we're looking at when we talk about a solution, is being able to provide a wide-ranging access to the data in an intelligent way, if you like. So, demonstration. To start with, just a little bit about what we're going to focus on for today. So, what we call our asset information solution and the domains that exist within there. Really three areas. Again, our master data, or as-built information, single point of truth as we like to call it. That's where all the released information is. That's the information that people would go to gain access to whatever the documentation be, about the plant work or the pump or whatever it is. Work in progress area. As we start working with data, then we have a work in progress area, and we do that typically via projects. So we create a project, and then we'll bring that data through into the project, work on it accordingly. If we need to exchange data outside of the company again, with subcontractors and people of that nature, then we can do that. It's not going to be the focus of the demonstration today, but it'll give you that flexibility to bring data in or take data out. But well, usually in most cases both ways. The important point here is that this work in progress area we have is based on projects. As those projects are finished, if you like, and completed, any documentation that we approve and then release back to our master area or master data area as our as-built information, that project information is then archived off. Okay, and we'll see that working in the demonstration today. What does it actually look like? Well, we've just got some screenshots to just walk through slightly before we get into the software itself, and this is basically showing us a window of how the master area and our project area works, if you like. So at the top we've got our master document, in this case the AutoCAD document here. This is the one we're going to work on today as well. And then underneath there we have a project, AP Mock 1234 in this case, and we have a copy of the AutoCAD file in that project document as well. So Meridian's able to manage that scenario, allow us to work in this area here on our project copy, and then propagate that project copy back to our master, to our single point of truth, once it's all been finished and approved and signed off. While we're working through that documentation, or we're making the changes to the existing documentation or creating a new one, we can manage that change process. So in this case it's a fairly simple workflow, but we can have whatever workflow you want in there to enable the work to be done, then reviewed, approved, rejected, all those scenarios that typically go with the workflow. And that's all tracked against the users that are involved with those different sequences. Probably one important point as well is, as we're going through those changes, we can choose who we assign to, in this case, approve a document, or maybe a selection of documents. We can do that on a group basis, approvers group, or in this case we're assigning it to Pamela, who's the project manager. And obviously if they're on holiday, we have a list of other resources available to us at that point in time. So we're flexible, we're controlled in the workflow, which is what you want in a workflow environment, but we're flexible on how we can work with that workflow. Configuration of the system, can be changed to suit what individual companies need in that area. If we move on a little bit, things like search and retrieval. Any database-driven system these days, you'd expect searching to be very easy. It is. Being able to search, on all sorts of information and return some results is very easy within the system. But in here, what we're looking at, or what we're going to look at today actually, is an asset-based approach. So in this case, we're searching on the asset tag of whatever the object is, and then it's returning all the information for us. So it's really hammering home, hopefully, this relationship that we can put in there around assets and documentation. Not only that, we have an Explorer web client, if you like, where we can do the same sorts of searches. We can interact with the system in a very similar way to the client that I'm going to start with today. But inside of there, we can also take that web interface, if you like, and embed it inside of another package. So in this case, we've got a sample screen of IBM Maximo, and in there we've got our information, in this case about a particular work order. But what we can do with that, based on a simple search criteria, is we can feed that search through dynamically into Meridian Explorer and then display the results via the web client, but inside of that application. So in this case, inside of Maximo. So it's just giving you another idea on how the system can be used really and integrated into your existing systems that you may have on site. So, what we're going to do for the demonstration? Well, we're going to create a new project. We're going to create some project copies of master documentation. We're going to create a new document as well. We're going to review and approve those, and then we're going to release it back to our master area, our as-built or single point of truth. And then we're going to do just a little bit of quick search functionality just to show you from an asset approach, if you like, or asset searching approach, what's available in there. So, without further ado, we'll have a look at a demonstration. Okay, so let's have a look at the software then. So, I'll just start our power user. This is our thick client, and I'm going to log in using administrator for doing the demonstration today. So, just to talk you through the interface a little to start with. On the left hand side we have our folder structure. This folder structure can be anything you like, but the folder structure that we have in here at the moment is typical to an industry template that we use. And we use that as a foundation for any implementations that we do. It can be modified obviously, but the reason it's there is to give us a starting point with an implementation. We generally follow that starting point through, and that template, if you like, or this industry template that we have set up here, is been developed by BlueCielo over a number of years as best practice, really, as an implementation within the industries that Meridian's applied to. It just gives us a starting point and a faster route to implementation, really. So, we think back to our PowerPoint that we've just looked at. We had a masters area in there. This is our master area within Meridian. Folders under accordingly. This is our single point of truth. This is our as-built information. This is the released information that typically anybody in the company with access to documentation has access to, because it's the live information. Okay. Below that we have an objects folder. Within there, can open it. We have our assets. So this area is what's synchronized with products like Maximo and such like. We have a two-way synchronization, or we can have, that brings that information in. The point here is that the assets are within Meridian so that we can link our documentation to those assets. Down at the bottom we have projects. So with the system I've got today, we've got different types of projects set up. This is our working area effectively, as per the PowerPoint and presentation before. This is where we're going to be doing the bulk of the work. And then at the top, as projects are finished and the documentation's approved and released, then the history of those projects will be moved into the archive area. We have a documentation folder as well, which is really just a free folder at the moment, or a free area where we can place documentation into the system if we need to. That's really there if we need to show it at some point that the system is controlled and it's a controlled system, but we can also be flexible in there. We're not absolutely rigid if we don't need to be with certain things, so we can provide other areas to work with as well. So that's basically the structure. The other side of the interface I'll talk about in a moment as we start doing something. But in the first instance, I want to modify a document. So if I come in here and type a search in, there's the document that I'm interested in. This is our Revision A document. And down the bottom here, we've got a view of that document. Now this view down here is actually the native file. It's not a rendition or a lightweight version of the file. It's actually viewing the file natively, and the viewer that we use in here is compatible with well over 250 different file formats: AutoCAD, Inventor, SolidWorks, such like 2D and 3D. So we can view that data natively. At the top of the window we have property information about what we've got selected, as you'd expect. So if we look at title block information in here, we've got some links through to the title block. We've got our metadata on these two tabs, and then we've got some other tabs that we're going to look at very shortly. Okay. The interface can be customized, so in the case of the view window I can drag it out, I can double click on it and have a full screen view if I wanted to. We can dock those wherever we need them to be, typically down there in my case. But that's our document that we want to work with today. If we look at the preview down here, or the actual document, view the document, we can see we've got a red line markup on there as well, so we can include red lines in here. We can have workflows to incorporate that if needs be. And it's asking me to add a switch into this circuit diagram. So that's exactly what we're going to do. If I go back to our Explorer view, we can see that's where the document I've found actually resides. So it's a master document, it's as built and it's released at Revision A. So the first thing I need to do before trying to make a change to this document is create a project and then copy this file into the project. We never work on the master data. The master data is always, again, what we call our single point of truth. It's our locked data. So to create a project, I'm going to choose to create a new administrative project. The first thing Meridian prompts me for is information. So what's the project ID? Well, in this case I'm going to call it DW-1234 for today, and project name is Circuit Mod. And what it's done is created that project underneath the administrative change projects. At the moment it's just a container. So what I'm simply going to do is come to the document that we know we need to modify and choose to take a project copy of that document. As soon as I do that, Meridian's going to ask me which project do I want to copy it to, the one that I've just created. In here it's going to give me a view of the document itself, so it's telling me these are the associations with that document. So in this case there is an asset that's associated with the document, but nothing else. We don't want to change the asset, that's coming from our asset management software, so we're happy with that. If this was an AutoCAD drawing with XREFs, or maybe an inventor assembly with parts, all of those would be listed in there, and you'd have the option to go and select those for copy as well, or select the entire branch if there's quite a few parts. In this case we're going to just choose the document itself. What will happen is that will get copied into our project that we've just created, and notice it's taken the structure with it as well, so we're not having to think about that structure. At this moment in time it is just a copy of the project, it's a project copy of the master document. So it's at revision A. So the first thing we're going to need to do here is start a change on it. If I come in, go to our document workflow and say start change, I can choose who's going to do that change, in this case the administrator, type in some information around what the change is going to be in this case. The first thing to note, it's now raised the revision number of this document in this project to B1. It's also changed the graphical indent there. It's telling me now it's under change. We've also got a status here under change. I'll come back to that in a moment, so on and so forth. So we've now got a workflow being applied to this document. To edit it, I can simply double click on it. It'll go away and open the application that's associated, AutoCAD in this case. This is straightforward basic AutoCAD stuff now. So we have our document here, and what we're going to do is simply, well, this switch is just a block in the AutoCAD world, and that block has got an attribute giving a tag number. We're going to copy that just using standard AutoCAD functionality. A base point down here, and I'll just copy it to the next part there. Obviously we've got two switches now with the same tag. I don't want that, I want them to be separate, and so in the AutoCAD world I'm simply going to edit that attribute just using standard AutoCAD functionality. The point to note here is excuse me, that this textual content is actually relating to an asset tag within our assets within Meridian. Well, it'll mean more when I actually do something with it in a moment, so I'll leave it to that point. It's basically textual content at the moment that's inside of the drawing, nothing more. I've made the change. I'm going to shut the document down, save it. That's me done. What's going to happen in Meridian now is the view's going to update, and we can see now that it's actually given us that change there. So the additional block's been incorporated. And at this point the modification to the drawing itself has been done, but I want to be intelligent with this information. I know it's a block, I know it needs to be related to an asset because I've typed some textual content in there, but at the moment the system doesn't know that. So what I'm going to do as a manual process, and this could be automated if needs be, is I'm going to go to our objects on this document. These are relationships to the assets effectively. If I click drawing tags in here, it gives me the one that was already there, i.e. ZBW-3, but it's also given me the new entry for ZBW-4. I manually say I want to create that link. That's now linked, and I've now got a link to that asset within the system. And that's what we're talking about when or part of what we're talking about with managing assets and relationships. Okay. From this document, I can go directly to that asset if needs be. That's the asset information, tag information, whatever that information be. I can also go back the other way, so I could say, well, what documentation is associated with this asset? Go back to our AutoCAD file, and there it is. Okay. Not only that, if I wanted to, I could come into our links, our asset links, manage those links manually, and say, well, you know what, yeah, let's have a look at, I want to associate this with a valve because this switch has something to do with the operation of a valve. So I'm manually going to search the asset register within Meridian, and for valves, anything with a tag description of valve is displayed, and I can choose the valve that I want and create the link manually. So basically what I'm getting at is we can create the links automatically or semi-automatically, depending on how you want to work, with textual content in the document, in this case an AutoCAD file that has an embedded attribute, or we can manually do that, and also we can work with that in the same way within, say, a Word document. Okay. So I'm going to come away from AutoCAD for a moment, and I'm just going to open up Notepad. Notepad's going to show us some textual content. Okay, this has just been typed out, typed this out earlier, just to give us something that we don't have to type for the demonstration. So all I'm going to do is a simple copy to clipboard, and we'll place this inside of our Word document. Okay. So the important points to realise here is within the textual content of the Word document we have asset tag numbers as well. Now what's going on in the background is the system's set up to look at any textual content within any documents and recognise that format of text. If it sees that, then it gives us the option to create a link. So if I save this document now, remember it's a brand new document, so I have to save it somewhere. Meridian's integrated into the applications, so the first thing it's going to prompt me for is where to save the file. I'm simply going to click save on that. Because the system's set up to allow me to only save to projects, I can then just choose the project. I don't need to go and select the folder, you'll see why in a moment. I just select the project and then choose the relevant details. So in this case it's an electrical discipline, and its discipline code is going to be 32CTD for a circuit diagram. The rest of the information is fine. It needs a title in here, so we'll just say this is circuit spec, and I can finish that off. Close that document down. That's me done. If I come back to Explorer, Power User with the Explorer view, and if I come in here and just refresh the view, you can now see that I've got this Word document. If I select it, it displays the text for me. That's all displayed. Over on the left hand side we've got the icons telling us what status these files are. We can obviously go to the file themselves and see the status here on either of them. We'll see that. And what I want to do now with the Word document I've just created is come in and scan that text for any references to tag objects. So what it's done here is it's scanned through that textual content and realised that there are some asset tags in that particular format, so it's pulled those out for me. And again in here I'm going to say create those links, click close, and now I've got those links to that based on the textual content of the document. It's automatically or semi-automatically put that in for me. Again, I can come in and manage these links, so maybe I want to look at pumps within my asset register again. Come in here and I want to relate it to this booster pump, for example. I can manually create that link, and I can build that link system or that mapping of links up accordingly, manually, automatically, however I want, based on any type of document that I've got in here. The important point is that we're also able to interrogate the document and pull textual content out as well. Not only that, if we need to look at this information or maybe catalogue it for some reason at some point, we can do a report based on that. So in this case I've just created an Excel spreadsheet as a report. The columns can be customised to whatever's required, and it's given me all the information for this document with these tag references, with tag descriptions and tag types and etc. Okay, quite useful. So now we've got that done, what's the next thing we need to do? We need to approve these really. At the moment they're still under change. I'm going to take both documents at once to do that, and I'm simply going to come into our document workflow and say I want to start a review process on these. The administrator is going to do it. We'll just say it's all good. What's the reason for this? Well, I'm pushing it through for approval on all documents. Our icon has changed within the Explorer view now, so we can see that something's changed obviously. If we go to the documents themselves, they're now listed as being in review. We also have a graphical status that we can look at with that as well. So on any of the documentation we can see this graphic. Okay. We can also come in here, so if I look at our Word document for example, we've also got a graphical representation of the links. So I pulled out three automated links to our asset register and one manual, so we can show that graphically as well if needs be. Basically all that information is good to go now. So at that point, an approver if you like, in the system is able to review this documentation, understand what's going on, be it graphically or via the list with assets if you like, look at all that and take a decision on whether to approve it. Now with a Word document, a case of reading a Word document basically and looking at what's going on. With the AutoCAD drawing, it's usually a little bit different in so much as what's changed between maybe the released version or released revision of the document and the revision that I've got here, the one that's being worked on. It might not be an obvious change. Appreciate, mechanical drawings can be very subtle in changes, pin IDs, all documents of those natures. So we've got to understand what's actually going on with that and look at what we've actually got. So if I come in here and look at the documents that I've got here, so this is the document I'm modifying at the moment. We've got another 2 additional ones that are on different projects. We're not going to concern ourselves with those at the moment. But this is the one we're working with, and this is the master version at the top here. So if I select both of these, in this case, I have the ability to compare the 2 drawings. This is really useful in so much as, from a review point of view now, this is revision A without the additional switch. Revision B, that's work in progress with the additional switch. It's quite obvious what the change is. If I window down to here though, this is the compare result window, and in here I can change colours in here to show, in this case, what's been added to this document or this drawing. Anything been deleted? No. Show the unchanged? No. So if I come in here even, I'll zoom out, and we can see here that that's the only thing that's been added between these 2 revisions of the document. It's a fantastic bit of functionality. Not only that, is if we move forward and look at the sheet, turn everything back on, come down to our title block area, zoom in a little bit. So we can see here revision A is approved, revision B is not approved, and again in the compare results window we can actually see what we've got. Okay, so we can show the differences in there. So it's given us a really good tool to be able to compare what's going on between the different revisions, and based on that take a decision on whether we want to actually approve that documentation or not. Okay. Also, I've done that all logged in as one user, but typically it would be done as separate users. So one of the other things that we've got is the ability to customize this view here. So if I go to my to-do list, me logged in as administrator, at the moment I've got some other documents that are under change against me, but I've got this project document here and this Word document that are against me for review. So I can immediately see what I've got pending on me in the system. I can also add email notifications into that, so as it changes from one state to another and I'm the responsible person, I'll receive an email notification to say, hey, this is waiting on you. So all that can be done within the Meridian system. Okay. So what remains for me to do at this stage is basically approve these. I can do it from my to-do list if needs be. I can come in here and say document workflow, submit for approval, which will take it onto the next stage. Oh, wait, let me do that again. Or in this case, I'm just going to force it through and say, well, not force it through, but just say I'm happy with that documentation, just approve it for me please. And say updates done. What's the reason for that? Well, they're approved. Click finish on that, and now it's going to approve that documentation for me. My to-do list has changed automatically. You'll see there's nothing pending in the review state for me now. Everything's been done. So if I now go back, I could use the search functionality. But if I go to my project, just leave down the folder here, we can now see that those are issued. That's the status in the system, but they're still in the project area. Okay, so from an approval point of view, we've done that, we've issued them, we've approved them, but we now need to send them back to our master area to our as-built area, or that single point of truth. So that's then the live document. Okay, so that's the last part of the workflow really. So I come in there, I can now come and say release as a master revision. Before I do that, just note that these documents are still at revision B1 and -1. If I release those to master, what's going to happen is a few things here. Just let that all sort out. So within our masters area, first of all, we've now got our AutoCAD drawing that is at revision B. We've got our Word document that's at revision which is the first revision in our revision scheme that we're using today. We also have some little padlocks here. The padlocks are telling me that it's creating what we call a rendition file in the background. The system's set up to do that automatically. So if I just refresh that view, that's all done now. And what that means is that this at the moment, or as we've got this here, I'm viewing the native file, okay? If I click to switch to the rendition view, I've now got a PDF version of that. So the system's creating that automatically in the background. So if we do the sort of standard stuff on here, using our PDF viewer, just windowed around it, shouldn't it? There we go, the status is now approved, so on and so forth, so that's all good. So we've created those PDFs automatically for ourselves. Okay, same with the Word document. Second thing that's happened is, if we look at our project area, those documents have now been moved from that project area, they're no longer there. And if we look at the archive area, it's now created a new folder structure based on 2015, because that's the year we're operating in, and that's just the setting we've got in the system. Could be done on a month basis if needs be, or year and a month basis. Projects, it's an administrative change, AP-DW-1234, and then our documentation's in there. And those are the incremental versions that we've got as we were doing it. So that history of the project has now been archived off automatically by the system. Okay. And we've now got our release documentation that's out there. And that's basically just a brief overview of how we work with assets and how we're linking assets, be it manually or automatically, to documentation. Also some of the workflow that we can put in there so that we can progress documents through change in a controlled way. So the next thing is, well, we've seen a little bit of it already, is the search functionality. But I'm going to do it in two places. I'm going to do it inside of here, first of all, within Meridian Power User. So if I do a straightforward search for ZPW, these are all the assets within the system, or all the things within the system that have ZPW, and I'm interested in ZPW3 for this. That's my asset. So straight away from Meridian I can find the asset that I'm interested in. But because we've got that asset linking going on, I can now see what we've also got in there. Okay, so we've got our different documents, and at the moment just because of the way the system's configured with the administration login, is it's showing everything. So we've got the archived version of the drawing. We've got the released and up-to-date version, which is revision B in the masters area, and then we've got other copies as well that are still being worked on. So we can work on multiple copies of the same document side by side within Meridian if we need to. Typically you would only show the released version, I guess. Well, depends on the user really and what they want to view. But this is showing us that documentation. I can then go to the document, go and open that. Within Explorer, that's taken me directly to the documentation, the AutoCAD file. If I go back, actually, let's do that search again. In fact, we did have it, didn't we? We had the Word document as well, so I can go to the Word document if needs be. There's our Word document. It's in the masters area. We can filter these as well, so if I'm only interested in masters with everything else enabled within my viewing permissions, then I can just look at that. I can go to the Word document. This is just telling me that I'm still in a search view over here. It's just going to switch to the Explorer view. That's fine. So you should be able to see from that. Now I've got the linking from the from assets to documents, and also from documents to assets, so a bidirectional link. That's using the search functionality within Power User, or the thick client if you like. I'm going to minimise that down and come down here and open, just give that a while to fire up. And if we come into our Meridian Explorer client, the first thing you'll notice is we've customised it a little bit to give it a look and feel of man and machine. So we can customise the interface a bit, make it look more homely. And we'll do just the same thing in here, just a straightforward asset search. We'll do a wildcard, pick ZPW-3. Got all our information here about the asset. Go to our related documentation and go on the general tab here. All the property information as we've got it configured at the moment is shown here, status and such like, if needs be. We've got options to work with those files up here as well, so whether we want to download the information or the files, details about the file. If we go to our property information, there is our property information, together with a small view if needs be. And if I come in here to our revisions, typically for an end user of the system, they would only see the current latest revision anyway. Because I'm an administrator, I can see all the previous revisions, or depending on how you want the system set up really. Again, I can download this document if we enable that via permissions. In this case, I'm just going to view it inside of the viewer, but full screen this time. This is viewing the native file. It's not the rendition that I talked about before, but it allows us to view that information. We've also got our additional sheet with the drawing border on there as well, so we can view one or the other. We have a column over the side here where we can add additional information, enter comments and such like through the web client. Again, this is all dependent upon permissions and where things are in the workflow. I'm seeing everything at the moment because I'm administrator, but it hopefully gives you some idea of the ability we've got either through the thick client with Power User or the thin client with the Explorer client here, going through a web browser. So, what have we covered in the demonstration today? Basically creating a new project, creating project copies of master documents, so things that are already out there as built documentation, also creating a new document with the Word document, and with both of those how we can automatically or manually link through to assets, and then being able to review and approve those in a controlled way with a workflow in there, and that workflow being traceable on who's done what, when and where. And then finally releasing that back to our master area as a new revision and archiving off the project information that's been worked on. Last but not least, being able to find all our asset related information either through the thick client or the Explorer client through the web browser there. Thanks for your time today during the webinar. If there's any more questions, please feel free to give the office a call or drop us an email. Myself or one of my colleagues can pick that up and either, in first instance give you a call. If you'd like to see the system in some more detail, then by all means let us know that, and we can come in and give you a demonstration live if you like, rather than doing it via a webinar format as today. Okay, thank you very much for your time, and have a great weekend.